When we look at the black community, it's easier to say that A equals B. When we see criminality or poverty, it's easy to assume Pookie equals Ray Ray, or poverty equals Keisha equals, which means Keisha equals booty clapping. And if you're black and you live in a low income neighborhood or just in a black city, you're automatically on food stamps. That's one way to look at linear thinking without understanding the wider context. And if you want to keep that pseudo intelligence up, all you need is somebody silly like the HodgeTwins to get on YouTube or on Twitter or X and to keep promoting that message. You also need somebody silly enough to keep collaborating with them that's white. And that person is Jake Shields. Jake Shields is a semi-white supremacist who doesn't really like black people, but he sure likes talking about black fatigue.
So I was just reading the audience questions from reading a little bit. And God damn, my audience is racist.
I think everybody is, though. But they only penalize white people for being racist.
True.
You know what I'm saying?
Now, this is interesting. He's talking about his audience, which he admits himself is racist, but they have questions about black people. And of course, the HodgeTwins says everybody's racist. It's just a problem with it's white people. Let me just tell you this. I do understand that people have their preferences or dislikes of other groups. But if you're going to talk about black people, because, you know, your way of black fatigue problems is you want to help. The last thing that you want to do are to ask people who are biased towards blacks. It's just like saying, oh, I want to help gays or trans people. But everybody that I'm taking the advice from are people who hate them and want nothing to do with them. It makes no sense. Like, the main thing that you should do if you dislike blacks or you don't like whites or you don't like trans or you don't like whatever community it is, Muslims, you should just want to stay away from them, right? And this is important, but they don't. This is a topic of discussion on almost every white racist channel.
I think it's good to have these conversations, though, because it's like, it's not good for black people either. I don't know why black people have sheltered these people for so long.
I don't think they give a shit, to be honest with you. Look like they would, they paying the price, though.
Now, he says this, it's good to have these conversations, right? This is interesting because you're trying to have conversations about black fatigue when neither you or the HodgeTwins live around black people, are married to black people, and you're having conversations about a group that you can't stand, and you have no investment in trying to help that group overcome the problems that clearly you're accusing them of, right? And then what you typically hear with people like the HodgeTwins or other blacks that are tired of black fatigue is you have accusations without understanding the wider context.
Yeah, it's like black communities are so destroyed. Like, I just seen Cam Higbee. He's doing what Charlie Kirk was doing. He went on a HBCU campus. And those black people ran him off campus. Yeah.
Really?
Now, in this particular clip, you have Cam Higbee, okay? Cam Higbee was the guy that went to Tennessee State. And it's easier to use this linear thinking to say, oh, he went to the HBCU, and then they ran him off. And that's why black people are not liked by whites, or that's why white supremacists talk in the way they do. When the reality is Cam Higbee goes around everywhere starting some kind of problems. He gets beat up or pushed around. He didn't have any approval to be at Tennessee State. He came onto the campus with his own self-made speaker and microphone, interrupting things. Again, that's the wider context of why that happened in the first place. It wasn't a planned debate. He wasn't trying to make it a planned debate. He wanted the students to react like that. But again, if you're going to have these conversations with disingenuous people, you're not going to understand the wider context of why things happen. And when you hear about black fatigue, you just hear about it just like this.
It's not racist, and I know y'all have been told this is racist, but it's not. It's not racist to call black people out for their behavior and what they're doing to society at this moment. I'm glad people are noticing this because it's been so many years and it's finally catching up to y'all. I've been trying to tell y'all that white people are tired of y'all. I'm tired of y'all too, but everybody, the world is getting sick of y'all and y'all's bullshit. I'm so glad this day is here.
Now, why that lady is a piece of dark chocolate fineness, in many ways, she's using the same linear thinking that the HodgeTwins are using. White people are tired of black people, and it's your fault, okay? But there was a time where Jake Shields actually did some interesting journalism. He decided to operate outside of his echo chamber. And again, these people who want to blame black people for all their problems, and again, black people must take accountability for all issues that you cause or do not cause, right? You just have to do so. We're going to find out that a lot of the white races don't really want you going back to Africa or don't want you really leaving them. No, they don't really want that. Because whenever you talk about something like reparations or something to restore the black community, they always say no. In one case, there was General Yahana. He is a Hebrew Israelite leader. I think he's in the same camp as a Captain Tazariak. I think he's the person that's over that particular sect. And he actually showed up to debate Jake Shields. And obviously him and Jake Shields are on the opposite, scale of things. Jake Shields as a, semi-white supremacist, and, General Yahana, which is extreme pro-black. And they were talking about something.
I want to talk about how they solve them, I guess, because
nobody wants to face what they did.
But you still
You got to be a man to deal with this.
Okay. Let's say we did fuck you over though,
right?
But we still have to look at a solution of how do you pull yourself out of that. And
it's an easy solution.
Black people need to maybe work together.
You know what the solution is?
What's that?
Real simple. The United States has 50 states, right?
Yeah.
Black people are 15% of the population, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take 15% of the land mass of the United States, turn it over to black people and call it Black America. Let them establish a government, get the CIA out of our neighborhoods, and we'll migrate the hell up out of here, give you every beautiful city, and we'll go build an empire like you've never seen before.
So how do we solve this black fatigue problem? Now, Jake Shields admits clearly, listen, man, you were wronged. You were wronged. He says it. I mean, we heard him say it. You were wrong by who? By us. But at the same time, you ought to get yourself up and fix yourself. Now, it can be debated if blacks have, a certain opportunity delivered to them to get them out of their issues. Some could argue that blacks have. But the reality is this. If you are the person that started a fire and you only want to half rebuild that house up, you cannot tell the people who you intentionally started the fire to, the victims, that, hey, listen, I know I did you wrong, but I paid for half the house. You need to pay for the other half. You did not restore that person to what they were, okay? And I get it, you're gonna have white supremacists. I get you're gonna have people in the black community who are anti-black. But what you should not be able to complain about is something that you know that you started. You created what you see. And whenever black people are dysfunctional, if ever black people are not married as they used to be, and if white people, especially those on the white right, if you ever try to act like you had nothing to do with the destabilization of black people, it's just inconsiderate, and it's also unethical, and it's also disingenuous. You guys sit up all day and talk about black fatigue and how, it's hurting everybody. Well, you know what? When we had our communities, the high teas, and when we were wearing suits in the civil rights movement, we had a problem with that too, okay? You had a problem with all that. You had Jim Crow. Why do you think so many blacks had to come over to the East Coast or to the Midwest or to the West Coast? And they got treated unfairly there, okay? We're talking about a group of people who did not have justice, and then you complain about how they act when they don't have justice. Again, you can feel however you want to feel about the situation, but Jake Shields should never talk about black fatigue because you already admit you are the problem. You caused the problem. And if the problem has gotten out of hand, why did the problem get out of hand? Woo! And what blacks like the HodgeTwins want to do, the blacks like the HodgeTwins want to jump on the bandwagon to make white people feel better about whatever it is that they did to the black community, how you dismantled it. No, I understand if you don't like blacks. It's a personal choice. But stop talking about black fatigue when you're the one who created, quote unquote, the situations and the conditions for black fatigue.
Woo!
So then the guy starts talking about separation, right? This is important. Give us 15% of the country, and then you go your way, we go ours. Whites will never typically agree to that. All right, they never will. Why? I'll tell you. Because who's going to benefit from the black talent? The biggest white supremacists on planet Earth, no matter who they may be, they have organizations, they have football teams, they have businesses. They directly benefit off of black talent. The United States benefits off of black talent, okay? And so if you don't have black people and their talent and you can't just benefit off of it for nothing, then that means you got to cover that territory. You got to cover that ground. You got to cover things in music or in science or, in the military, which we're 20% of the military. That means you got to make up the difference for it. And all the time, white people can or cannot make up that fundamental difference all the time. And they understand it. But it's easier to complain about black fatigue. And then check this out.
What you ask us to do, you would have never asked the Jews after World War II. Imagine if you told the Jews after World War II, you got to go back to Germany. Even though they raised this against you, you got to work with the Germans. And even if it takes 100 years, you got to try to, show the Germans that you're a human. That's what we had to do. Mm-hmm. They didn't go for that. They got the hell out of there. The minute they got a chance at the state of Israel, they got the hell away from the Germans. And to this day, Jake, 54, almost 50 years later, over 50 years later, the Germans are still paying reparations to them.
Yep, they are.
Now, what did we get?
So again, these are the same guys who sit around, talk about Israel all day, right? But the general makes a very, very valiant point. When the Jews left Germany, at least those portions of Jews, they were not forced to go back to Germany after being harmed. No, they went to other places around the world, and then Israel was created as a country, okay? And they were allowed to go and build. Blacks, after being harmed, were forced directly back into some level of servitude, where there's Jim Crow, redlining in most communities. I mean, you even have San Francisco, apologizing for how they did blacks, even in the places where, it wasn't, quote unquote, racist anymore. So how are you going to describe a group who they were in slavery and then they had to go back and live amongst their oppressors, and then you call it black fatigue, when the real reality is you're responsible for some of the conditions that they face now? If you see any black person in America that speaks English, it is because a white person taught them. Okay? We don't just speak English by nature. We were taught that. How we think, westernized. We were taught that. Okay? Certain ways of doing things, certain foods that we eat, certain shows that we watch, certain values that we have in business. Let's say for Americans, we typically like a lot of speed. We typically like a lot of service level. These are things that we adopt in American culture, but it has been taught to us. Okay? Most of our teachers were white or something like that. And then some of those teachers, told black students they couldn't be anything. There was a cap on their learning. All right? And so you had even people like Malcolm X who were victims of that. And this is what we're talking about. After slavery, blacks were not allowed to be their own people like these other groups were. When you talk about these groups coming to America, Indians, Filipinos, even other African immigrants, they don't have that same story. But the person that doesn't have that same story, that has some of the most atrocious stories on planet Earth, you're tired of those people when you commit those same atrocities on that group. And then let's talk about the lack of self-esteem that blacks have.
Yeah, I'm not African. I only like to call myself black because people try to put you in a box. You got to behave a certain way, dress a certain way, talk a certain way. I don't like that.
You guys are split, right? Half white, half black.
You have the HodgeTwins saying here, I don't even like to refer to being black. You know why? Because it just I don't want to be put in that certain box. You hardly ever hear, I'm afraid to be called white because I don't want to be put into a certain box. I mean, you hardly ever hear that, but this is the language that certain whites are happy to hear from certain blacks talking like this, right? Because it's non-threatening. Why does this person talk like this? This person talks like this because they want to be accepted by a group. You first got to say that white people are the best thing since skimmed milk. And I know you don't believe me, but check this out.
Yeah. Black people just don't, a lot of black people don't realize, man, you got a great opportunity here in America with the white people. White people figure out everything.
You don't want to go
We
to
do
Africa?
better when we around white people. The hell I'm gonna go to?
Only white people can save blacks. This is the mentality. Okay? This is the mentality that you must have. So let's sit around and talk about black fatigue and how blacks are doing all of this. But wait a minute, these same whites who have historically been keeping you down, you need to stay amongst them. Okay? The people that have created the conditions of the black fatigue you're complaining about, you need to stick amongst them. So it's a damn if you do, and it's a damn if you don't. Jake Shields already admitted that, number one, he's racist. Number two, his audience is racist. Number three, his people harm black people. And number four, he has no real interest in the black plight or black problems. Why does he keep talking about black fatigue every damn show? Why is he so interested in what's going on in the black community? Because it's a benefit. Talking about blacks is money. Some of these same dudes will hate on blacks and have black girlfriends. They don't want these blacks away from America. They want them here. They need something to complain about.
Woo!
So guys, we think it's your boy Oshay Duke Jackson. Back at it again with another episode of The Celebrity Drunk. Here's for all you do. Subscribe to the bell. We're out.